going to be controversial because I'm British and that's what I do. Influencer at Isobar, where I work, is considered a dirty word. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why we think about that. But before that, I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey. 15 years ago, when I was back in the UK and I was working for a large PR agency, Hill & Knowlton, and I was working for Gillette, and I ran the PR for Gillette in the UK. Some of you might not have even been out of high school 15 years ago, but let's gloss over that bit. I particularly like the image that they found for this. It was pretty cool. We used to run press trips for the guys on Gillette, for all the big magazines like GQ and Esquire and Men's Health, and took them to explain kind of what the products are. And it was about this time that we started to introduce bloggers to the press trips. And there was outrage amongst the traditional lifestyle media journalists that these disgusting little bloggers should be invited to share the stage with them, the people who had been working in the industry and had the credibility and the heritage. And really, it's about old versus new. It was about the changing of the guard at the time. And what we were seeing is that these magazines who've become bloated with advertising money, which was full of paid-for advertorial content, where the subscriptions for these magazines were both dwindling and being pumped up by corporate subscription models, were failing, really, were getting angry at these authentic, new, up-and-coming blogs who are actually deeming and daring to write from a different point of view on shaving and grooming and beauty. And that really has kind of driven this kind of mistrust in kind of influencers, and we really see there's a parallel between what was going on then with the blogs and what's going on now with the influencers. And what I mean by that is that the influencers are where today where the magazines were then. We have this mistrust of influencers because I think we've talked about it already this evening, is that they've become bloated, that they're becoming paid for, that people aren't trusting what they're saying, and that they aren't being genuine. And really, when we started with influencers, they were the anti-celebrity. They were the people that you did trust because they were people like me. They were people that you could trust to have an opinion on stuff because they weren't being paid for it, and they actually had an opinion because they felt passionate about this subject, which is why the bloggers were so successful when they came into it. And we've lost that. And I think that is why people have got this kind of distaste in their mouth when they talk about celebrities. It's influencers, sorry. And I think we are seeing that from a societal point of view as well. We did a big piece of research last year at Dentsu that looked at kind of trends for 2020. And one of the big things that was coming up time and time again was a shift in mindset towards a more authentic world, a more trusting world where you wanted technology to be more transparent, a world where you wanted brands to be clear about what they were doing, having a role in the world that was for good, having a role in the world that you understood what a brand stands for, and that people wanted to understand what their role is as human beings, both from a societal point of view, from your community, all the way up to a federal and a global level. And people understand that the world is changing and that you want to make a difference in the world. And that is going to impact influencers. And it's going to have an impact in how people go about things. I think if you look at brands who do this really, really well, a brand like Glossier, who last week in Wired magazine, Amy Weiss, who's the founder of Glossier, came out saying that they are going to be doing exclusively peer-to-peer marketing because they believe that it's the people who buy the product who can actually have genuine influence and actually who have the trust in the community to be able to talk about how influential the products are and have meaning and to add to that story and narrative. And that's coming from Glossier, which was started as a blog and as an influencer platform. Emily Weiss started that whole thing before she actually started the products. So they've come from a position of being influencers and are realizing that that is no longer applicable for their brand and that they want to change. So I think if we're going to take anything out of today, and we've heard it from a number of brands, a number of speakers today, is that authenticity is really the key word for where the future of influence is going. Unless brands are going to be able to team up with a influencer who has got something that they can really bring to them, that they trust where the numbers are, that they're not seeing paid for numbers that are followers that are being inflated for money. If it's not seeing an influencer where every single post is sponsored, brands are going to be gravitating towards influencers who can actually tell a story and who understand the environment that you're talking about and actually have a point of view that is meaningful for the end consumer who you're trying to sell. Because much more powerful is having somebody who has 800 followers and who really knows their onions about something, rather than somebody who has 800,000 followers and is just taking the money and running with it. I've been given my time limit. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Hi, this is not so much of a question, but it's a shameless plug. I'm a strategist. I've been working with agencies for a long time. I've gone through DDB, Publicis, Wenar, you name it. Are you looking for a strategist? Matthew Elliott has my resume already, so hit me up.
I was about to say,
great.
Send it to Matthew Elliott, and he's the perfect person.
A lot of swings here tonight at TechTO. Let's go. I'm good on my feet, though, right?
I have a question for how do you deal with, I guess, brands that you work with, what their goal is for what their marketing campaign, marketing goals for long-term, short-term is versus what your company does in terms of what you feel would be more efficient in bringing about that brand awareness, attaining, reaching out to customers in the most authentic way. How are you able to bridge that, I guess, difference?
In specific to influencers or generally?
Generally with what your company does.
Oy, that's the $1 million question.
Generally, and because I think measurement is everything, right? We have to measure.
Yep.
How do you do that? And what recommendations do you have in the influencer space? Tristan sort of shared a platform where they give some level of transparency. How does your agency think about that?
Yeah, I think we look at influencers in different realms. As I said, you can go for a kind of a micro influencer who has a lot of sway, who wouldn't necessarily, or actually hopefully wouldn't call themselves an influencer. And it's about, a lot of this is what we have lost is connection and speaking to people and actually going onto somebody's profile and reaching out to them and actually getting their phone number or meeting them for a coffee and having a conversation about what do you stand for, what do you believe in, and how can you help us craft the thing earlier about being content creators is absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with that notion, but it's about how do you do that together for a brand to actually elevate the brand story in a way that is relevant. It's a two-way exchange. Like a brand has the ability to invest in a story to elevate the awareness of that influencer. At the same time, we want to be able to take advantage of the audience and what you've got to say about the thing. So it's got to be a two-way exchange. It can't just be a one-way transactional thing.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation and everyone. My question is, my name is Morali. I'm just starting to build my brand. I've been an entrepreneur for years. My question is, there are a lot of platforms out there, and in terms of my strategy at its infancy, I've been posting up on several different platforms, including TikTok. And when you look at influencers, are you looking at their diversity in terms of platforms, or are you targeting specific platforms? What is your advice there? Thank you.
It's down to who you're trying to target. It's always about the consumer. If you focus on who you want to reach and also who you want to grow your business into. So back to the story about, or the question about how do you have a long-term vision for things. It's not necessarily who you are connected with right this minute today. It's about who you're going to be connecting with in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and where do you want to take that. So if your audience are on TikTok now, maybe they will be, growing into another platform over the next couple of years. We might not know what it is. It's there's a good analogy with radio stations is that you kind of start listening to kind of one thing, which is the youthful kind of like pop thing, and then you move kind of through into something a bit more alt, and then eventually you start listening to the stuff that your parents listen to, and that's I think is when you actually realise you become an adult. And there's a growth and a transition to these things, and you transition through your social any media that you engage with. So it's about the consumer and where you're going to go with them.
See, that's funny because I'm an elder. I've actually grown from adult to elder now, so it's kind of interesting. Last and final question before we move on.
Hi, hello. I'm Bruce Harbin. I have a question about influencer marketing pricing. So what are the pricing models? Is it pay-per-click, pay-per-impression? What are you seeing?
This is the beauty of being a strategist, that I don't need to worry about money. The other thing is I'm completely naive to how things get paid for in Canada, having only been here for a short amount of time. But there are any number of ways that you can partner with them. And I think the guys at Rise will probably actually have a better view on this. Again, it is down to what is beneficial for the relationship that you want to develop.
It varies, right? It varies. There's cost per click models. There's paying someone a lump sum model. It's almost as long as
giving them a car for 6 months.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Like it's that, which is a problem, right? So there is no standard, and that does create challenge. So thank you very much. I really thank you for coming on.